Okay. Says we are live. Good deal. Good deal. All right. So guys, welcome to a very special episode of the Vonu Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to coercion. I am your host, Shane. So yeah, it's been a journey getting here to this live stream. Everything went well, but I will mention that I had the stream set up, everything ready to go, and then YouTube made me reset up the stream with a new link and everything in their new creator studio because I had to verify that this video wasn't for children. I was legally required. They wouldn't let me do anything. So sorry for the delay, guys. Certainly do apologize for that. But we've got a very, very good episode for you today. And if someone could, we've got a few people here. It looks like if someone could drop in chat and let us know that the audio is coming through fine. It should be. Not really worried about it, but just drop a message there in chat, and I certainly do appreciate it. So it's been at least a couple of months since I've released an episode, and my apologies, guys. I had to take a step back and focus on my health. What I'll say for now is that in just a few months, things have drastically improved. So I'll talk about that in an episode at some point, as I do think it's important and relevant when it comes to Vonu, because if you don't have your health, then invulnerability to coercion seems kind of secondary, right? If you feel like shit all the time, then freedom, you're kind of enslaved to your health, so or your lack of health. So we'll talk about that at some point in the near future. So I've still been busy with Libertarian Attack publications. We released Ben Stone's newest book, Anarchist Abolitionist: A Bad Quaker's Journey. We released Matthew Witecki's Brushfire, a libertarian-themed thriller, which we did a book release live stream here on this channel. And I've added a few new bundles that you can find at libertarianattack.com. And please do consider making a purchase. Certainly do appreciate that. I also released a couple chapters of my currently untitled piece of anarchist fiction, of course inspired by #Agora. I'm not going to say anymore. If you want to check that out, just visit vonupodcast.com. So, I've got a few episodes I need to put out. One with Demelza Hayes. So she's been, actually, I don't think she's been on the Vonu podcast. She was on Libertarian Attack Radio. Demelza Hayes will be on. I've got one with Smuggler that I recorded a couple months ago that is still super, super relevant. It keeps getting more relevant, it seems. So that one will come out, and then a couple guest appearances as well. That's again, hopefully I'll get back to it. The podcast is not dead, guys. It's just on hiatus. So today, I guess we'll go ahead and get on with it here. So today, I'm pleased to welcome back Max Hillebrand. Max is an open source entrepreneur, a Bitcoin enthusiast, a Rothbardian anarchist, and a sound money agorist. He was on episode number 59 of this podcast when we talked about the proliferation of privacy and security tools in Bitcoin. And today we'll talk about his journey to becoming unbanked, living on Bitcoin. We'll take your live questions and whatever else we get to. Max, without further ado, welcome back to the Vonu Podcast. How are things going, sir?
Well, thank you very much for the invite back here on the show. Really one of my favorite podcasts because, as I said on last time I was on here, I've discovered after listening to your show that I've been a Vonuist for a long time now, and just getting more theoretical input on what I've practically applied is fantastic, and it definitely helped me to further advance my whole journey onto becoming invulnerable to coercion. Again, thanks for inviting me back, and I'm really looking forward to this interview.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I certainly do appreciate that. And if any of the listeners here haven't listened to that first episode, it's not going to be necessary listening material for this episode perhaps, but I would certainly recommend it. I learned a lot. I had to listen to it a few times. Max is very, very knowledgeable on Bitcoin. Doing a lot of valuable work, which we'll certainly talk about here in this discussion. So I guess I'll begin with this, Max. Is there anything anything else you'd like to add to the introduction that I gave you here for those who may not have caught our first discussion? Anything else on who you are and what you do?
Well, my background was in Austrian economics. That is something that I've studied for a long time, and ultimately discovering Bitcoin as applied Austrian economics in the real world, actually proving that this entire theorem works, and it works very, very well. And then falling down the cypherpunk rabbit hole and learning how to become more invulnerable to coercion by applying cryptographic tools in order to defend both, of course, your communication, which is vitally important, right? Freedom of speech is necessary for any free society. But then, of course, also apply to defending your property rights specifically, but not limited to with Bitcoin. Here in this sense, of course, owning your private key, running your full node, this is very important. But then privacy, right, to remove the attribution of your action from economic trade is essential. And that is something that I've been focusing on recently. Just getting more into the nitty gritty of Wasabi Wallet and trying to improve this powerful weapon of self-defense to a greatest extent as possible. And of course, it is free and open source software. So if any of your peers would like to contribute to making Bitcoin as fungible as possible, then, well, reach out. The GitHub is open.
Awesome. Yeah. Very good. Very good. So, I guess, yeah. So I guess we'll begin. Before we get into the main part of this episode, I suppose, yeah, I'd like to get caught up on what you've been doing. Obviously, I follow you on Twitter, and yeah, you're always busy with Wasabi. Make it putting forth updates. Working on documentation. You're always working on something. So I guess yeah, let's start with an update on your work in Bitcoin and I guess open source more generally. What's new with Wasabi? What have you been working on?
Well, one really, really awesome thing is well, maybe as a background, right now I'm in Taiwan with some of the Wasabi contributors for a month-long hackathon to get a lot of shit done because we have a to-do list that goes to the moon and beyond. And in this time, we've merged a bunch of awesome stuff to Wasabi. And one thing that I'm very excited about is a plug-and-play Bitcoin full node integration. So now the Bitcoin Core binaries of the Bitcoin daemon are installed in Wasabi by default. So every Wasabi user now with the if he compiles master or the next release coming up will have the opportunity to fully verifying the entire time chain from the Genesis block to the most recent one by simply one click in the GUI. It's a very, very easy install. And this is something that is vitally important and will further be improved with future contributions to the Bitcoin Core integration. That is phenomenal. And yeah, the documentation has been growing insane in just 4 months. We now have over 20 contributors, over 1,000 commits on GitHub, like hundreds of pull requests and issues opened. I'm the maintainer of this thing, and it used to be just me writing the documentation, but by now I barely have time writing new stuff because I'm just occupied with merging the contributions of others. So that is phenomenal. That's just a sign of how free and open source software, not just limited to source code, but also to the documentation for teaching peers how to use these weapons is just phenomenal to see all the contributions coming in.
Yes, I'm right there with you, and I'll mention. I mean, this has been like a 4-month journey. Unfortunately, it's taken some time, but had to get a second noddle shipped. The first one had a problem with the hardware, but I do have the Bitcoin full node synced, and still not 100% there yet. But I got Ride the Lightning installed. I want to get LND installed, and I guess BTC Pay Server isn't installing. I guess they had an issue the past 24, 48 hours or something along those lines. I think the GitHub repository got deleted by accident. I'm not. Yeah, I think that's been resolved as of now. But anyway, yeah. So I'm getting closer to doing all this stuff myself. But what I will say is I've been watching some debates, and I guess I'm not gonna give promotion or anything. Not that people aren't familiar with these things, but. I don't know what one thing I really like about Bitcoin is that and maybe this is by design, maybe it wasn't. I mean, that's kind of certainly up to debate between it's certainly been up to debate for the past 7 or 8 years, but I really love the fact that I can run a full node, right? I can feasibly run a full node without having to buy a new terabyte hard drive every couple months. I can set up a Lightning Network node and do off-chain transactions. I can do all of these things. I can verify the how many Bitcoins there are right now. I can verify how many there are going to be in a week from now. I can verify all of these things myself. So I think that's just that's really incredible. There's as far as I know, there's not really much else. There's certainly nothing else like it.
That is the pure anarchy in money, right? You make your own rules, you verify your own rules, and you enforce them if someone else tramples on your rules, and then you kick them out of your own network. That is what Bitcoin is all about. I mean, yes, running a light client right on your phone is nice and convenient, but ultimately, if you want to be a first-class Bitcoin citizen, if you truly want to defend yourself against any types of attacks, including inflationary attacks, which for monetary economy is like the most crucial of attacks, then you should definitely run your full node. And it's just lovely that we see not just the model, but there are many plug and play boxes. Many other wallets now start supporting Bitcoin Core in their backend. It's just phenomenal to see that the usability of Bitcoin increases further and further until hopefully everyone will have a full node running at their home.
Right. Yes. One click full Bitcoin nodes. It's it reminds me of there was it's an article on the anarplex.net website, and it's basically like our task right now is basically to build tools for opting out. It's like we want like a $29.99 a month, $29.99 a month opt out package. Like make this shit really easy for people to do. Where it's not about difficulty. It's just about once they see the advantages of as everything we've been talking about, the advantages of Bitcoin over fiat money, then yeah, people will voluntarily choose. They'll see the advantages and they'll do so. So I think any increases in usability and user friendliness, one-click Bitcoin nodes, I love it. Basically this stuff just being so easy that I can do it. So yeah, that's certainly good.
Exactly right. It decreases the cost of defense, and that is vitally important, right? Because that means that more people can defend themselves, and ultimately this means that there are less, or that there's less of an attack surface for anyone, right? And also in that sense, the crowd increases, right? The Bitcoin user base increases, which means your anonymity set increases as well, right? So you're no longer the odd one out using Bitcoin, but everyone is using Bitcoin and using Bitcoin in a censorship-resistant way. And so the usability, in the sense that more people are able to use this technology, is vitally important, not just for these peers getting their defense up, but also for you getting your privacy up, right? So you're definitely incentivized in order to, we'll make sure that more and more people are running full nodes.
Right. Yes, and I'll remind folks who may not have listened to our first episode. Basic, and this is something that I learned from you was basically two things you can do to greatly increase your Bitcoin privacy: run your own full node, and don't reuse addresses. Yeah, I'll mention that. I'll mention that here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's not all you've been doing. I've seen you. It's on Twitter. I don't know much about it, honestly. I haven't had a chance to catch up. But what's Taproot?
I told you.
It didn't end the stream on. So this might actually YouTube's new thing might actually be because you start the stream and then it previews it and then you hit live stream on YouTube. So it might not close out that video. It might just go to a black screen for a few seconds instead of redoing it the whole thing. So okay, I think we're back. All right. Good God. Sorry guys, OBS crashed. We'll get back into it. Max, you'll have to restart your answer. What is Taproot?
Taproot is both a scalability, a privacy, and a usability improvement to the Bitcoin base layer protocol. And it allows for just so unbelievably amounts of benefits. The beautiful thing of Taproot, amongst many of these other things, is that it is a consensus compatible soft fork upgrade. So we're not breaking any rules, but we're expanding within the given rule set. So no consensus is broken. We're still using Bitcoin as is. We are just getting more usability out of it. And one of the baseline argument for this is we put less data on the time chain. So we leak less data, sensitive data, to other third-party verifiers, and of course also spies who want to attack us. And this is done with basically implementing the Schnorr signature scheme, which is the original signature implementation from back in 1990 something by a professor called something Dr. Schnorr. He was kind of an asshole because he believed that he owned a math formula, and so he put out a government patent and used government coercion to stop anyone from using math, asshole. And that stopped Satoshi using Schnorr because although by the time Bitcoin was created, the Schnorr patent was expired, so he could no longer use the government force to coerce. But there was just nobody using it because they were coerced for such a long time. And by now, we have done a lot more research. We've done many more improvements. There are security proofs, much more beautiful than for ECD's the current signature scheme. And basically, because it is such a relatively simple math formula that is linear, we can do a lot of awesome stuff, like public key aggregation, key tweaks, Taproot, hiding scripts, using scriptless scripts and all other types of magic so that we can use Bitcoin in a way that nobody can attribute what exact script we use within the Bitcoin protocol. So basically, this allows us to do advanced magic without anyone knowing that we're using this advanced magic.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. So Taproot is involved with Schnorr. I remember us we talked about that in our first discussion. So more privacy improvements, which is a good thing. And I guess what other I guess functionality what will it I guess and you've already talked about it a little bit, but from an end user perspective who doesn't from an end user perspective, what more could I do with Bitcoin?
So, for example, one of the core things here is public key aggregation, which is a way to have shared ownership of the Bitcoin UTXO amongst, let's say, 5 different peers, right? And these 5 peers have 5 individual private keys, and they have 5 individual public keys. And what they can do non-interactively without any rounds of communication is aggregate these 5 individual public keys to generate one aggregated public key. And this aggregated public key kind of commits to all of these 5 individual public keys. And this one aggregated public key is put onto the time chain to lock up the Bitcoin, right, the UTXO. And then if these 5 peers want to spend this Bitcoin again, they produce with their 5 individual private keys in a 3-step communication round, one aggregated signature. So that this one aggregated signature is only valid if all of these 5 peers have signed the same message. And then we have one aggregated public key and one aggregated signature that is gossiped to the entire Bitcoin network of full nodes. And thus it is indistinguishable from using a single signature. So all of a sudden, it is no longer clear that this one Bitcoin was actually controlled by 5 separate individual peers. And it just looks like a regular single public key and single signature. So that is in line with the entire Taproot concept of hiding information within the public key so that, again, nobody really knows what's going on.
I see. So obfuscation then. Very good. Okay. Yeah, that's a huge improvement. But there's nothing going on in Bitcoin, is there? There's nothing at all.
No innovation. Move along. Buy your shitcoins. Nothing happening here.
Awesome. So we've talked about Wasabi, we've talked about Taproot. Is there I guess any other other advances coming in Bitcoin or anything else you've been working on that you'd like to mention before we get into I guess the main portion of our discussion today?
Well, maybe to come back a bit to Taproot, one awesome thing that we can also do is we can use scriptless scripts. And that basically means we have the functionality of Bitcoin script without actually using Bitcoin script. So for example, hash time-locked contract, which is currently used in many implementations. For example, the Lightning Network uses that heavily. And here we have a secret, the hash pre-image. We commit to the secret by hashing the pre-image, and then we have the commitment to the secret, which is just a hash. Then we do something with this commitment, for example, an on-chain transaction saying that only if this secret is revealed, then the coin can be spent. So we do something with the commitment, then we reveal the secret at a later point of stage, and something else happens. And with scriptless script, we can have the same functionality, but by not using hash pre-images and hashes, but by using public keys and signatures. So we have a secret, which is called the adapter. Then we tweak a regular public key with this adapter so that what comes out is a tweaked public key, which looks to an outside observer indistinguishable from a regular untweaked public key. Mm-hmm. So we have committed to a secret and we can do something with this commitment. And at a later point of time, we can reveal the secret. But we do so with a signature by signing the message with the tweaked private key. So adding the same secret to the private key and signing a message with it. So that the revelation of the secret is not the hash pre-image, but a regular looking signature. Again, indistinguishable to any outside observer. So this means we can use, for example, atomic swaps so that Alice has a coin and Bob has a coin. Alice puts her coin into the input of the first transaction, but she gets the output of the second transaction. And Bob has the input of the second transaction, but he gets the output of the first transaction. So Alice and Bob are swapping coins, And we can already do this again with hash time lock contracts. But the problem here is that we reveal that the smart contract is happening by revealing this data of the hash and pre-image on the time chain. With scriptless scripts, we can have the same functionality, but completely private, in the sense that nobody knows that Alice and Bob are partaking in this economic trade of swapping their coins. And so we break this assumption that in Bitcoin, quote unquote, the inputs pay the outputs. And this means we can swap our coins to completely different transactions in the time chain without anyone knowing that it's happening. And this means we completely obliterate the transaction history on the blockchain itself without taking away any of the verification features of Bitcoin. It's a tremendous privacy improvement.
Oh wow. So you're saying like a transaction today could be like the coins could be swapped from a transaction a year ago. Is that kind of what you're getting at here?
Precisely, exactly. I had a talk at the Hackers Congress at Paralana Police in Prague, and there the title of the talk was "Time Traveling the Time Chain with Script-to-Script Atomic Swaps." So that is exactly it. Alice has a coin in transaction one, but she gets the coin of transaction two, and Bob has the coin of transaction two, but gets the coin in transaction one back. So we are literally time traveling here
Yeah.
by changing the property rights of our Bitcoin.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, I knew from our last discussion, like the privacy tools would just keep coming and these improvements. But Schnorr, I guess back when we had our first discussion, I guess it would have been a few months ago at least, maybe more than that, maybe more like 5 or 6. But I think at that point, I don't really know if any I guess quote unquote work had been done on Taproot or Schnorr. But it seems like I guess what's a time frame, and obviously that's a hard question, but I'm sure some listeners might be curious. When could we actually see these implemented?
So Taproot was introduced on the Bitcoin Dev mailing list by Gregory Maxwell, OG Bitcoin contributor in Cypherpunk, back in February 2016. So it's actually a rather novel concept. And by now, we have 3 different BIPs to define this entire protocol. BIP Schnorr, which defines the signature algorithm, BIP Taproot, which defines the Taproot construction of hiding scripts within the public key. And then we have TabScript, BIP TabScript, which defines opcodes specifically used for Schnorr signatures. And all these 3 BIPs are currently in heavy peer review. Actually, there is something organized by Anthony Towns called the Taproot Review Club, which has been going on for the month of November already. And I think over 160 peers have joined this review club to try to break Taproot and to see where it is broken, how we can fix it, how we can make it better and more stable. And I myself am partaking in this review club. And I think by now we have just in like 2 weeks of literally of this review club, we have 4 merges to the BIP repository to specifically improve Taproot. It's just phenomenal to see how a bunch of individuals see this power of the technology, try to understand it, and try to fix it. And the beautiful thing is that well, I myself am I'm a noob. I cannot code. I'm like all of this is much over my head. But even I have a pull request now to the Bitcoin core repository that was merged with BIP Taproot, just fixing a minor error, but that was actually quite substantial in the concept. So anyone, really anyone, can contribute to this awesome project and to see how we can make it better. So don't shy away if you cannot code or if this might seem too advanced. Get educated, learn, and be more knowledgeable and try to improve the tools that ultimately you yourself are going to use.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I went ahead and dropped in chat. Found an article on Bitcoin Magazine. Taproot is coming. What it is and how it will benefit Bitcoin. Looks like a pretty extensive article for any listeners that may want to learn more. And I'm sure. And also,
Absolutely.
yeah. And I did watch your talk at Hackers Congress. Very good. And I'll put a link once we get done here. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for the archived YouTube version and eventually for the podcast version as well. So yeah, that all sounds great, and I do remember reading about this. Yeah, this has been around a while. I think I read about this a couple years ago. When I had even less of an idea of what was going on in the space, so I'll read this or I'll read up on it and get caught up. But Anything
Yeah,
else on
for sure.
Taproot?
Yes, so the article on the Bitcoin magazine is written by Aaron van Weerdum, who is one of the most prolific writers in the space. So I can very much recommend you that. And again, Bitcoin OpTech is a great group of peers getting together to teach how to use scalability and privacy technology in Bitcoin. So bitcoinops.org, they have a weekly newsletter, which is just a wealth of knowledge written by David Harding and others. And they also have organized a Taproot workshop, which is like 20 videos or so with very exhaustive documentation, really step by step, from the elliptic curve cryptography all the way to Schnorr signatures, to the taproot constructions, to tweaks, to script constructions, to spending rules, and all the crazy complex things are in this one workshop. So I can very much recommend you. This is a great resource of knowledge to try to get educated.
Great, great. Good to hear. Yeah. And yeah, perfect, perfect. Sorry, I thought OBS was gonna crash again, but no, we're good. God, that would be unfortunate. Anyway.
The beauty of free software.
Oh yeah, it's it works 99% of the time. You can't be perfect, right? Um, but yeah, and anything else on Taproot or what you've been working on since we last chatted?
Well, I think we've covered Taproot, for an introduction quite well. But one other thing is just further improvements to the entire infrastructure. I mean, we're about to have here Bitcoin Core released in the next version. That brings a bunch of new awesome fixes to it, especially to the privacy side. Some network level privacy and all this. So it's relentless trying to keep up with all the improvements of the space. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so good luck, you all in the rabbit hole. It for sure is a crazy ride.
Indeed, yeah. I'm focusing more. I'm focusing more, I guess, right now on the Nodl, getting that up and going. Can't explain all these things very well to my listeners yet, which is why I have you on and Richard Myers and other folks that can. But yeah, just I still as I recommended a few months ago, there's the Nodl's out there, and there's actually gonna be a Nodl too. There's obviously other hardware. And then you can always get a Raspberry Pi and put a Bitcoin full node on that and just do it yourself. So I mean I certainly do recommend getting involved. Even we've talked about the privacy benefits. We've talked about just kind of the sovereignty over your money. Being your own bank. But also just in the realm of self-directed education. I think because Bitcoin, I believe Bitcoin is going to be a very huge part of the future throughout the entire world. So so getting your feet getting your feet wet in it now, I think yeah, very fun and valuable as well. You'd be participating and contributing to the future of money. So I say get involved.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And not just are these tools that you want to use yourself in order to defend yourself. So this is, very, very selfish in the sense, like all the projects that I've contributed to are projects that I personally love and use
Mm-hmm.
every single day. So I need them to be good, right? So that is my first motivation on getting them done. But on the other hand, right, this is very specialized knowledge in, as you say, a cutting edge field that has tremendous growth potential. So this is something that we might talk a bit about later in the show as well. But if you have more knowledge in the space, and if you actually become more educated, then you can quote unquote sell your education to others in the form of supporting them in their projects and ultimately getting paid by that, hopefully in Bitcoin. And this means that you can actually build yourself some income in the second realm of Agora to then become more free in the process of not relying on some fiat slave job that you don't really like what you're working on, but actually earning your wealth by producing weapons of self-defense in the Bitcoin space.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed, and I guess right along that same line of thought and to transition here, you've I guess recently accomplished your goal of of becoming unbanked and closing out your bank accounts and living primarily off of Bitcoin and fiat. So I guess first off, because especially for folks in Europe, the term unbanked might not be it might be a new one, but even for folks here in the States. So for those who are unfamiliar with the term unbanked, it's actually a label used by the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is a measure of people without a savings or checking account. Of course, in this report, much like the label unregistered voter, the government collects these numbers so that they can, fix it or, correct the situation. But, just as with, ex-voter or ex-voter or whatever. I think becoming unbanked, it's a great label. I think it's fantastic, and it's something that I think more people should strive to. It's difficult, but Max here has found a way to do it. So we're going to learn all about how he's done so. So I guess first off, when did, yep, go ahead.
Well, we know there are two very different concepts here, right? If you actually want to have a banking service and you would like to go on the free market and cooperate with a banking institution in order to have a bank account and do these like fiat transactions, and you are forcefully prohibited by the government based on some regulation, like if you're a weed shop in Colorado or some other place, right? Or if you do your business on the Silk Road, then this is completely horrific. Right? Because you want to engage in division of labor and you want to acquire the voluntary service of others, but you are forcefully prohibited not to. Right? That is not good. So being unbanked in that sense is horrible, right? Because people stop you forcefully from reaching the goals that you would like. But on the other hand, now we have alternatives, right? We have Bitcoin, and this means that we can actually completely ditch the fiat realm and the first realm to just be unbanked truly in the sense of voluntarily. Like we don't need that shit. Thank you very much for your fiat slave card. We don't want it. Thank you. I will do my own business voluntarily in the Agora and without begging for permission of you. And that is, of course, like something that I've reached. So unbanked, not in the sense of I'm not eligible to get a bank account, I'm forcefully prohibited, but in the sense that I voluntarily cut up my fiat account and the fiat cards because I simply no longer need them, and I'm tired of begging for permission of financial transactions.
Right. Yes, and that's the angle that I'm talking about here is strategic withdrawal. Cutting ties to the state or statist institutions. So obviously for folks who are who are barred from it, who want to use it, that's not a good thing. But for purposes of especially the Vonu podcast opting out and utilizing alternatives, then yes, certainly in favor of strategic withdrawal. Just as with canceling the voter registration, which is which the more of a first step for people a little not as deep into the Bitcoin rabbit hole and what we're discussing today. But anyway, same concept. So when did you decide that you were going to work towards becoming unbanked voluntarily?
Well, this really was back in end of or mid of to end of 2017, where two major occurrences happened in the Bitcoin space, and that was the 1-2 punch of the user-activated soft fork and the No2X movement. And that just really showed me how brilliant Bitcoin is and how powerful it really is. Because first, we had the user-activated soft fork to get segregated witness version 0 into the protocol, right? And that was a soft fork, meaning we did not break any rules, right? We operated within the pre-established rule set that we all voluntarily agree upon, and we restricted some rule set so to get more functionality of having the segregated witness upgrade. And here, a dedicated group of individuals, researched this, implemented the code, and ran it on their own full nodes. And nobody could stop them. Not even miners, not even big businesses. Nobody could stop them from running this code. And ultimately, the game theory checked out so that this was actually activated within the entire Bitcoin protocol. And you can use it ever since August 1st, 2017. So that showed me that if you want to change the rules while not breaking them, then you can do whatever the fuck you want. It's a permissionless system. And then shortly after, a bunch of big businesses, right, and conglomerates tried to break the rules, tried to introduce a hard fork that changed with the pre-agreed upon rules, right, that we all voluntarily chose. And so they tried to force us, or me specifically, as individual user, to play by their rules. And I was, fuck you, no. And so I disconnected from their nodes and I threw them off my network, and I never heard from them ever again on my Bitcoin full node. So that showed me that if others try to force their rules upon me while breaking my rules, then they can do nothing against me cutting them off and just discarding them and simply ignoring them. So this together, like upgrading within consensus and forcing others to change my consensus, that was very, very powerful. And that was when I realized that Bitcoin is really legit and that this is something very, very powerful. And so pretty much at that day, I sold all my shitcoin bags, first and foremost, the fiat shitcoin, to get rid of that as fast as possible. And I decided to work towards truly being Bitcoin only. And it took me quite some time, actually. I still had fiat income up until October 2018. No, wait, 19. So just a couple of weeks ago, basically, I still had fiat income that I immediately withdrew to cash and then traded to Bitcoin. And now I no longer have any fiat income. I no longer have any fiat jobs. I no longer have any fiat holdings. I earn my Bitcoin. I hodl my Bitcoin, and I spend as little as possible in order to build my wealth and to accumulate capital. And that is basically the step where I'm right now. No bank account, no income in fiat, and no holdings in fiat.
So you're situated comfortably in the second realm then. No real first realm interaction with at least monetarily.
Absolutely, yes, exactly.
Awesome.
And it really is it's undescribable how this complete separation just changes your entire mindset and your entire being. It's something. It's kind of like Plato's allegory of the cave. Right, you're in the cave. You see a bunch of shadows dancing at the wall. Right, that's the second realm. Sorry, that's the first realm. Right, fiat empires trying to play tricks on you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go outside of the cave and you see the light and you see all the beautiful colors around you, and you're like, wait, but the shadows are so bullshit. they're absolutely not worth it, and they're just horrible in any shape or form. You really cannot explain to someone who has only seen shadow how beautiful the light outside is. And that is right now where I'm at. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you still in that cave? I mean, it's horrible in there. What are you doing? This is really not worth your time and effort. Come on, join us here in the second realm.
Right, yeah, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on to chat about this is that you've done this. It's possible. As I said in the beginning, I mean it's not easy. I first heard about the concept of unbanking. I guess it would have been like 2015. And I kind of halfway decided then that I was going to work towards that. But I guess as of last year, whenever I didn't have an address, like I didn't have a home, I didn't have a mailing address or anything, and I had to do some I had to. Yeah, I was a little concerned with that. So I haven't cut the bank. I haven't succeeded yet. But it's still something I'm working towards. I guess. Let me see here. I guess yeah. So what are some and you may have talked about this a little bit already, but what are some advantages to living without a bank account that you've already noticed?
Well, the mindset of not begging for permission every time you want to buy something, right? Every time you pull out your credit card, it's not a voluntary transaction, but rather you're begging someone else so that he may transfer debt from you to someone else. And this just is it. It puts you into this mental cage with every single coffee that you buy. That, oh, this is actually not my money. I'm just pushing around some
Mm-hmm.
debt, and I have to beg the banks for permission. It's very it's a very wide-reaching consequence, and it's very let's say subtle in how this actually plays out, because you don't really realize that this is happening until you step back and see what have I been doing for the last couple of years. And I've always been a huge proponent of cash, and always use that because it's the only way of using fiat shitcoin without begging for permission,
Yes.
right? If you have a $50 bill, you just give it to the merchant and you get your coffee, and you don't have to beg anyone for permission. It's rather good in this way. However, then of course, as soon as you want to have the conveniences of having a debit card and not dealing with changes and carrying the money with you and all this, you kind of get used to it, right? And you get lulled into this voluntary servitude of accepting that, okay, yes, it's not that bad to ask for permission every time, right? I can tap and pay. It's easy.
It
But
works most of the
ultimately,
time, and it works most of the time. Okay.
yeah, exactly. But so does slavery. If you don't upset the
Right.
master, then he won't
Yeah.
whip you, right? But you're still a slave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I'll say that's something that I started doing back in 2015 when I first heard of this concept of becoming unbanked was that's I do that up to this day. I still have a need, especially for LUA publications for Amazon, at least until I can figure out a different situation. I still have a need for some sort of an account there as of right now. But yeah, for my still paid in fiat, unfortunately. But I always withdraw my entire paycheck in cash. I've done that for years. It's not my bank's business or the government's business where I'm spending my goddamn money. It's not. And obviously, if you use a debit card, credit card, all those things, I think we have to go into the privacy concerns there. I think just I think the listeners are well aware of the concerns there. Um, yeah.
Yeah, but it's quite shocking of how vast reaching the privacy encroaches are here. I mean, every low-level bank employee has full access to your entire spending history. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like when you bought, at what restaurant, what meal. Like sometimes you even see exactly the items of the receipt that you used your credit card on. So and that is not just every low-level bank employee. That's also all the businesses that work together with the bank. I mean, your
Mm-hmm.
financial transactions with credit cards are shared with hundreds of other companies, and you have no clue who the fuck they are. You don't know who's working for them. You don't know how they protect your data, right? If they even encrypt it, haha, good luck trying to find encryption in 1980s banking
Right.
infrastructure. And it's just this vast network of leaking metadata all over the place. It's not just metadata. I mean, it's like specific data on what you purchased where. It's not just when you've purchased it, right? That would be metadata. It's like everything is in clear text, and basically any attacker with half of a brain can get access to this data.
Yeah. Yep. That is. Yeah. Certainly true. Certainly true. It's a privacy nightmare. Yeah, privacy nightmare. So I guess are there any well, I guess we can I guess that kind of be something that comes up in a moment. But I guess could you go into some so we've privacy concerns and first realm banking institution not good. I guess I want to get to more so kind of the living on Bitcoin. The positives here. So I guess could you tell us a little bit about like for your for your day to day stuff? I mean, how do you or do all the shops that you shop at accept Bitcoin? Do you use gift cards at all? Is it just Bitcoin and fiat? Could you kind of go more into kind of the day to day sort of how this all works?
Yes, absolutely. So, of course, most of the listeners probably still have some fiat income or some fiat holdings. So they still are with one leg in the first round. And in that sense, my goal was back then to get as much fiat expenditure Bitcoin expenditure as possible. Because the more Bitcoin I spend, the less fiat I must hold, right? Which means I can have more holdings in Bitcoin if I know that I will spend them directly in the future. And of course, what are your greatest expenses? Well, probably housing, right? Having a roof over your head.
Mm-hmm.
And here, if you have direct contact to your landlord, tell them about Bitcoin, right? Chill it hard. Tell them about the multiple benefits, and if they have half a brain, then they will see, okay, this is a lot better. And so back when I had an apartment, I paid my rent in Bitcoin. Because I told the landlord, hey, magic internet money, this is actually awesome. He was like, oh yeah, it really is. Can I have some? I was like, yes, please take it. give me a roof, and you get my Bitcoin. And this means I had to hold less fiat, right? Because I had all of a sudden a couple $100 every month less fiat expenditure. So that was a great step forward. The second biggest expenditure usually is food, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to eat, and hopefully good, because as you said earlier, you really need to be healthy. Otherwise, everything else is fucked.
Yep.
So here, if you go shopping at Walmart, most likely you will not talk to the CEO of Walmart, and you will not be able to convince them to stack sats in exchange for the food.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was going to the local agora. Right, so I went to weekly farmers market in the heart of the city. Gladfully, we have them in Europe quite all over the place. And here you talk directly to the entrepreneur, right? And you can again convince them, hey, magic internet money, do you want to have some? And again, most of the time, they or sometimes they agree upon, and especially if you are a recurring customer, right? If you can say, hey, I come back every week and I buy my food. If you want to have some off the record money for that, please take it here. And specifically, I think I had the greatest success by going directly to the farms itself. Off like in the on the countryside, go to the farms. All these farmers are landowners, right? They value property rights, at
Mm-hmm.
least in their land. Like most of them are gold bucks, and they I actually paid for potatoes with gold and silver, and eventually also with Bitcoin and also with the Lightning Network. It's for me, it was all about building a local agora of entrepreneurs who I know value their privacy and their sovereignty, in the sense that they see the value of Bitcoin. And thus they are willing, right? Individual valuations, they value the Bitcoin higher than the potatoes, so they're going to voluntarily exchange them for you. And that was for direct exchange. For always my best approach: go directly to the entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
shill them Bitcoin and tell them how awesome it is, and sooner or later they will see the benefits.
Right, right, yeah, and that has a dual purpose as well, right? I mean, yeah, as you said, you're building the agora, you're getting a local entrepreneur into Bitcoin, and once you get that, once you kind of witness that first transaction, how easy and quick it was, you didn't have to ask for permission, didn't have to wait 24 hours for the bank to process it or clear it. It just worked, it just worked. So yeah, that yes, it definitely serves a little bit of a dual purpose. I will mention here, Bruno Ray joined. Thought it was at 10. Sorry, sorry about that, man. Guess I didn't convey that information accurately. But yeah, glad you're here, man. Definitely glad you're here. We've got a handful of viewers. Welcome to everyone that's here. Feel free to drop any questions you have for me or Max in chat, or any comments. So yeah, that's great. Building the agora, as well as telling them about being able to pay for your groceries or whatever in Bitcoin. I guess one thing that I did for this would have been back in 2016. It would have been back in my shitcoin days. But it was right when the Steam at that blogging platform came around, and they the early adopters, made like $500 for posting and for reposting an article, as I did a few times. Just people are making just ridiculous amounts of Steemit on that site. And there was at that time I was in high level indoctrination. I didn't have first realm income. I didn't at that time. So basically for probably 6 months or so, I basically primarily lived off of Bitcoin. Because what did I do? Well, I used gift cards. There are two sites here in the States. One of them I don't recommend anymore, eGifter, because they go through BitPay and they want you to do KYC or something. They want you to do KYC and all that. But Gift is another site, and you can buy gift cards for like hundreds of different places. So for that 6 month span, I mean, I paid for everything in Bitcoin. I paid for my beer in Bitcoin. I paid for my liquor in Bitcoin. I paid for my food in Bitcoin. I paid for my gas in Bitcoin. I mean, that's what I did, and it was kind of by necessity. I didn't really plan that. Really didn't plan that out too well. But so that was one thing that I've used. Have you for other things maybe? I mean, how do you pay for a cell phone if you have one? How do you pay for internet? I mean, do you ever find gift cards to be valuable?
Oh, absolutely. Gift cards are, I mean, they are not truly peer-to-peer, right? You buy the gift cards from a third party, and then you exchange the gift card for the actual good and service. So we're kind of back to a barter economy. So it's definitely not optimal,
Right.
but it is a great transition step, because it really allows you, as you say, to get a vast network of companies who sell gift cards, right? It's just that they take your money up front, then they give you that, and ultimately you can exchange that back to real goods and services on their platform. And it's a great transitionary period. I personally really love Bitrefill. They are a great Bitcoin company that has very good coin control. So they value the privacy of themselves and their users highly. And they also support Lightning Network integration. And they started out just selling phone credits, right, for internet and SMS and all this.
Mm-hmm.
And then they switched, or they kind of or expanded their services to pretty much anything. I mean, they have Amazon, they have a bunch of flights and hotels. They have clothing stores and really hundreds, if not thousands, of gift cards. And that is really an invaluable service because again, it allows you to spend your Bitcoin directly. And of course, yes, it's a middleman, but ultimately, I would much rather have such a entrepreneurial middleman compared to a fiat
Right.
a bank middleman to handle my payments.
Right.
There are other sites, for example, coin cards. I think they're a Canadian service. I think they also do United States. And so that is very helpful. And for traveling, there are also sites. For example, cheapairs.com. They give you flights for Bitcoin. And also a company that I personally favor is Travel by Bit, an Australian company that is international. And they have all the flights. They have a bunch of hotels. They have phenomenal customer service. They also value privacy quite a lot. And it's if you ever need a flight or a hotel, these services are out there and can definitely be quite of value.
Right, right. So I'm trying to think of something that couldn't be covered by a gift card or Bitcoin yet. I guess it's, travel, all the basic expenses. What about? And I think I saw you post about this on Twitter at some point. Like, what about healthcare? Are there any companies out there that accept Bitcoin yet?
So I have a nomad travel and healthy insurance called SafetyWing.com. They are a Denmark company who expanded to America and worldwide, and they specialize on providing services for nomads who travel most of the year. And the cool thing is here, it's extremely cheap. And you get quite exhaustive service because, well, it's a free company on the free market. So there's high competition and they actually want to provide a good service to you. So I
Right.
think it's like 35 US dollars if you don't travel to the United States. I mean, the slaves of the US, unfortunately, get a bunch of discredits here. But they provide a phenomenal service. So that is what I use. Unfortunately, it's only credit card. And that is something that I've been hassling their customer support for about half a year now with like weekly emails. When the fuck are you finally going to take global money for being a global insurance company?
Right.
Um, and that might lead us to another topic of strawmans and sock puppets. If you have a friend who wants to buy Bitcoin, then you can give him Bitcoin in exchange for him paying your bills. So that's, for example, what I use. Right? He just has a credit card, idiot, and I ask him to pay the monthly bill of that health insurance, and I just give him Bitcoin every other month. Over Lightning Network even. So in that sense, I do pay my health insurance and travel insurance with Bitcoin, but indirectly, not over a professional gift card provider, but over an off-the-record sock puppet payment processor in that sense.
Right. Yes. Yes. And second realm terminology, proxy merchant. Yes. That's certainly a way to do it, and that's kind of what I was I guess maybe, um, you know, um, implying at earlier when I was mentioning the Amazon is kind of one reason I need a bank account right now selling books on Amazon. That might be I might that's the situation I'll have to figure out as a proxy merchant situation. So. Yeah, that's certainly a great option.
Actually, a question here. Do you think you can get paid by Amazon with Amazon gift cards?
Well, that's a good question. Eh, I don't know. It doesn't. It's not an option by default. Might be. If there's something that they could pay with, Amazon gift cards would certainly be it though. So maybe they. I don't know if they would. I don't know. But I'll have to look into it. That's an interesting idea.
Well, because here on this side, right, if you have income from Amazon over gift cards, Amazon gift cards sell at a premium, right? If there are many users like myself who need Amazon gift cards, especially for Bitcoin, so they might be willing to pay you a couple percentage point extras. So in that sense, you get 2, 3, 5% extra income just by earning Amazon gift cards and selling them for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Just an idea. Be creative in this.
Very okay. Yeah. That's a great idea. Yeah, great idea. So, so I guess something else I'll mention here, because if someone says I've heard people say this before, like I pay for everything in Bitcoin, and then they show a picture of their like Bitcoin debit card or something. This isn't what you're talking about here, right? Because I've been frustrated by this for a few years because you know what logo it shows on these on these Bitcoin so-called Bitcoin debit cards. Well, there's a nice little Visa logo smacked on there. So like it's I don't really see much of a difference. It's just seems still to be first realm money to me. And plus I have to go through all the KYC. So that's certainly not what you're advocating here, right? Whenever you living on Bitcoin on a Bitcoin debit
Oh,
card.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's just a complete bullshit idea because you get all the inefficiencies of Bitcoin, especially price volatility and exchange rate, plus the inefficiencies of debit cards and all the privacy laws. So you have no benefits whatsoever. I mean, although they might be a bit convenient, yes, for sure. Ultimately, you still beg for permission to make the money, and they are being censored all the time.
Yep.
Like these credit cards go out of business, or Bitcoin debit cards go out of business all the time because their banking relations just get shut down.
Right.
So ultimately, definitely not an option for me. I mean, I've never been a big fan of, never used them in particular, like cards in general, because of all the privacy downsides, and you just get all the negative sides of both realms. So it's not an option for me. No. Because basically what you do is you sell Bitcoin at the point of exchange or at the point of sale, and at a horrible exchange rate with all the privacy downsides. So I wouldn't really recommend this. I mean, selling Bitcoin for fiat is always horrible. And anyhow that you do it, right? Because you buy shitcoins. I mean, what the fuck? you change precious Satoshis that you know are going to send you to the moon in like the next 2 weeks. you,
Right.
you get like this hyperinflating shit. So that's never a nice thing. So, but if you do it, then at least do it in a privacy conscious way. And I see fiat as kind of fun coupons. You get exactly the amount you need, and you get that in cash from a local peer-to-peer trader. For example, at Bitcoin meetups, right? If you are local, then organize Bitcoin meetups or partake in them, and ask people if they want to buy Bitcoin. Most of the time, they do, and then you can get their local cash in whatever currency, like local currency that there is, and you get exactly the amount that you need, and then you get rid of that shit as fast as possible. Right, buy your stake as fast as possible, so that you can then, be out of that fiat risk again. But ultimately, this is much more private in the sense that you don't have to do KYC for exchanging it, and also you don't have to do KYC for every transaction that you do with the debit card. So your local cash trades is something that I favor in any case.
Right. So, we got a question in chat from Bruno Ray. So yeah, we'll get to that here momentarily. That's a good question. I'll certainly have Max address that. But something comes to mind, and it's going to be, it's a question. It's a question that's coming up. So what about, if you live on Bitcoin? I mean, how do you deal with the volatility? Is it day to day? Is it that big of a deal? Is it more so for your long term holdings that I mean, could you kind of speak to that?
Well, I'm an Austrian economist, so I really don't give a shit about price volatility. What I care about is monetary base inflation. So we're at 18 billion Bitcoin plus a couple of thousand. It's very stable, 12 and a half Bitcoin every 10 minutes. I have no volatility risk whatsoever. Uh, compare that with fiat inflation, where we quadruple the money supply every other week.
Right.
That is the volatility that I'm scared shitless about, right? So in that sense, I really don't have any monetary base volatility. But of course, we still have the unit of account of the fiat Bitcoin. So unfortunately, prices are denominated in that, and also the Bitcoin price is denominated in that. That is what makes it volatile, right? Not Bitcoin
Right.
is volatile,
Yeah.
fiat is volatile. It's the other way around. But in that sense, I was never a fan of going to an exchange and trying to short the market. Because I'm just not a trader. I'm not interested in it. I'm not good at it. And so what I do is dollar cost average. I used to buy with my fiat shitcoins every Monday a certain amount of Bitcoin with whatever fiat I had. Well, now I no longer have fiat, so I no longer have dollar cost averaging in that sense. But now I have monthly fiat income, right? So in that sense, I earn Bitcoin, every other month, and this means that I will get more or less Bitcoin all the time. And if the price increases, well, I get less Bitcoin paid out. But if the price decreases, I get more Bitcoin paid out. And my expenditures also increase in that sense. So I don't really worry about that. I try to build long-term wealth, not short-term ones. What I do if the price really crashes like crazy, like it was in early 2018. Well, how about a week-long fast where you don't eat and you live under a bridge, right? Try to decrease your expenditure and don't buy plastic crap, but buy high-quality gear that you don't have to rebuy all the time. Stop wasting money on nonsense. And hodl hodl strong, because it will go up sooner or later, or it will not. I really don't care. I'm in it for the freedom, not for the money.
Right, right, and I mean, here on the Vonu podcast, I mean, most of the lifestyle changes that Rayo discussed are mobile in nature, and many of them, worldwide in nature. So for Vonuans, for worldwide, for global Vonuans, for mobile Vonuans, I mean, Bitcoin just seems like the obvious answer, right? Instead of, because I know when I was in Acapulco last year, I couldn't use my American debit cards. Like I could withdraw money, but that's it. I'd have to go to the ATM and withdraw money. I couldn't use them down there. They were worthless. So like, but at every single gas station in Mexico, there's a Bitso. You can exchange Bitcoin for Mexican fiat or for pesos, or you can go vice versa. So like for Mexico, like Bitcoin would be I would say in some ways much easier than dealing with than having to go to a singular ATM that you can go to. I don't know I mean in Europe, maybe it's the same way, but it sounds like it's the same way. But for a global mobile
Oh,
Vonuan, it sounds like Bitcoin is just the obvious answer, at least in terms of
oh,
simplicity.
oh, absolutely. Over the last couple months, without any fiat bank account, I was in, I think, 9 countries that had 6 different shitcoins, and I did not care at all. I had my Bitcoin stash,
No exchange rate
and I
didn't
traveled.
get wrecked by the exchange rate seven times.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I bought as little fiat in the local shitcoin as possible, and I spent it all basically. And I was traveling with my van, so in that sense, every time, or step back. I traveled into the country. I don't have any local fiat shitcoin. I don't care. I don't need to spend anything for the first couple of days. And then I, find someone who wants to buy Bitcoin. It can be a Bitcoin ATM. That is usually the most like straightforward without much of a hassle. But good thing is I was at Bitcoin meetups in all these places, so there were Bitcoin peers around. Most of them want to get more Bitcoin. I want to get a little bit, not much,
Right.
but a little bit of fiat Bitcoin. So small trades was no problem whatsoever for me. I get local fiat Bitcoins in cash, without KYC, without asking for permission. I just did it. And then I get my food or whatever at the restaurants where I cannot yet pay with Bitcoin, because again, right, if you're traveling, it's very much difficult to build your local agora with reputation and long-term relationships with the farmers. So most of the time, it's just more convenient, and you don't have any long-term benefits of converting them. So
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, okay, take my fiat coins for now. And if you still want them, please take them. I don't want them.
Right.
And then at the when I left the country again, I exchanged exactly like every single fiat coin that I had for diesel, put that into the car or in the canister, and traveled onwards and to the next country where I did the same thing. So get as little fiat cash as possible, and at the border buy diesel with it. That's a much better utility shitcoin than fiat.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's I mean that. Yeah, especially if you're traveling around to Bitcoin meetups and such. That'd be super easy to get whatever little amount of fiat you needed. So yeah, I guess lifestyle might help with that as well. But still, I'm thinking about my experiences in Mexico. Yeah, it would have been if I would have just been on Bitcoin, it probably would have been a little easier. And it would have been a lot easier. Yeah, it would have been a lot easier. Having to move money around accounts and waiting 5 days. Yeah, that was rough. So yeah, uh, yeah. I don't know. It just seems like the obvious option, man. It really does.
Seriously. Yeah. It's like every time like I tell people, yeah, I don't want to have a bank account. They're like, what? But why? And it's like, because it's a pain in the ass, and the other option is infinitely better. Like, why do you want to have the old, slow, expensive permission fiat bank account? It does not make any sense to me. It really doesn't. It's so trivially easy. It's much more liberating. It's just a lot of fun, and ultimately it's an adventure, and that's what I'm in it.
Right, right. I guess a question I'll posit for you right now for someone who may be transitioning, who may be going through kind of the stage I was a couple of years ago of basically just using gift cards as the intermediary, and just not using fiat. I Oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. If they were to say someone buy like they spend they spend $50 of their Bitcoin, would you recommend that they replenish that if they spend Bitcoin, buy more Bitcoin at whatever price it's at?
Yes, and don't. So if you buy like $100 worth of gift cards somewhere and you buy your coffee or whatever, don't just buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. Buy like twice as much or 5 times as much because you just experience the power of permissionless money, right? So you should be in awe of the power of this weapon of self-defense, and that should make you 1,000 times more bullish. So don't just buy the exact amount that you spend. Buy more. I mean, like that's also what we hear, like with the price inflation. Oh, but don't you like are you not that sad that you spent like 5 Bitcoin on that coffee back in 2011? The answer to that is wait, why are you still holding fiat in that case? Because if you are so sad that you spent that Bitcoin that is now much more worth, why did you hold any fiat? If you had all your wealth in Bitcoin, a reasonable amount, maybe some in gold is probably not that stupid. Then why didn't you do it? Right? That it is, on that sense, it's not about having more Bitcoin. It's about having less fiat. Right?
Right, right. Very good, very good. So I'm trying to think here. So you've talked more about you've talked you mentioned the mindset a couple of times. So I guess just kind of a question to close out this portion, and then there's one question that Bruno Reyes said I'd like you to address. But and it's yeah, you've kind of alluded to it throughout the conversation, but has your journey to becoming unbanked, has it been freeing in nature?
Oh, again, it's ineffable. Yeah, I really cannot describe in words how it fundamentally changes your entire being. If you no longer have to worry about begging others for permission, for every small transaction. I mean, we say, oh, but fiat is so convenient, like tap and pay, and it's so nice. But like every time you're on your knees trying begging some random oligopoly to spend your wealth, it definitely enslaves you on a subconscious level, and you get used to it. You really do. And you don't see the forest for the trees, and all of a sudden you have chains so heavy that you can no longer move any place. And then throwing off these shackles and no longer begging for the permission, it, it is a night and daytime difference. And again, it's so difficult to describe this in words because it is so all encompassing. So absolutely, my life enjoyment has increased tremendously. My productivity has went through the roof. My worries have decreased drastically. I was very worried a couple of years ago about the fiat empire and what the hell are they doing and how the fuck are we going to fix this? Well, I have fixed it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we're all tied in this huge economy, and all this malinvestment and overconsumption will hit us all ultimately. But I've done pretty much as much as I can in order to defend myself against most of this, right? Of course, like if we hit Venezuela stage or even worse, which I think it will be on the global economy, then we will no longer have any food, right? Even if you have Bitcoin, even if you have your gold coins stashed in your own vault in the basement, there is no food, right? Nobody's producing food anymore, so you're still fucked. So
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, it will hit us all. But if you still have liquid and censorship resistant wealth that you can sell for any goods and service that you would like to consume, that is infinitely better than not having this. So just that worry removed is so fundamental. And it's it's not just holding Bitcoin or earning Bitcoin even, but contributing to the entire ecosystem. So over the last 2 years, I've heavily contributed to free and open source software projects like Nodl, Coldcard, Wasabi, Bisq, and many others weapons of self-defense. And you know, spending your like learning as much as possible, spending that attention and your powerful focus on manifesting these tools into reality, getting paid by this, ultimately using these tools yourself in order then to get your goods and services. It's an all-encompassing mindset shift, and it's again, it's so difficult to explain it because it's so vast-reaching in many different areas of my life. One thing is absolutely for fucking certain: I will never go back. I will never open a bank account. I will never ever do that. And I every time that I have to buy local shitcoins, I cry a huge tear in my heart. But well, ultimately, I do have to eat.
Right.
So in that sense, as little as possible, but every time it is a sacrifice, and I try to minimize it as much as possible. But I hope that I will have the power and the strength to never being forced into the first realm again, but living my life to the fullest in the second.
Right, right. Well said, well said. So, I mean, and the other thing, the last thing I'll mention here is, or maybe not the last thing, but another thing that comes to mind is, like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, if you look at the instability of, I guess, just the instability of the first realm in general, especially with the so-called cancel culture, where people are being driven to Bitcoin, without options, right? I mean, they've been pushed out of the first realm banking system. Like they have no choice; it's Bitcoin or nothing. Um, so in that case, I mean, I mean, for me, like on Amazon, I don't expect to be there forever, especially whenever we publish our, Guns for Vonuan's book. I mean, I've got to have, backup plans, right? Like I can't expect to be publishing there forever. So yeah, I'm getting, BTC Pay server set up on my Nodl and kind of moving in that direction. So like, especially for folks who, who talk about things that we talk about, or maybe even, I guess, more controversial in some ways, then yeah, I mean, doing this ahead of time when it's not necessary, finding out how to optimize your life living on Bitcoin, when you don't need to do it, when it's not, like, oh God, how am I going to, pay rent this month? I have no access to banking system, the banking system. How am I going to pay for rent? Well, it'd be better to figure that out ahead of time. So, yeah.
Absolutely, like it's preparation, right? And it's preparation in the best sense. That you don't just buy a bunch of rice and huddle on your bunker. I mean, that's definitely an option. But I do want to enjoy my life, right? And the cool thing is with Bitcoin, I can. Like, I'm very well prepared for the coming financial crisis. I hope, at least, to the best of my ability. And ultimately, I can still travel at any place that I want at the drop of the hat. Without begging anyone for permission to transfer money for the flight ticket, or to buy diesel to drive the car. And nobody pretty much can stop me in that sense, because most of my wealth is in censorship resistant assets, Bitcoin and gold, basically. uh, so that is again something that just liberates your mindset, that it pretty much doesn't matter how hard shit hit will the fan. I can get out, and buy a bunch of food and go off to the forest and live in a van for a year, if it hits to that. And I'm prepared for that, and that gives you so much more liberation, even in the times that you don't need it. Right? I really, truly hope from the bottom of my heart that it's not going to be as brutal as I envision it. Although I don't have much hope for this. But ultimately, if it will not be as bad, as it might be, then I'm very happy. But still, I was prepared. I do have my wealth in a censorship-resistant asset, and I can move around anywhere on the entire globe pretty much without cutting any major ties. And that in and of itself, to have the option to opt out, and truly disappear, if it really comes to that, is very valuable. And again,
Mhm.
especially because the cost of that have drastically decreased. I mean, in the fiat realm, if you want to do this, if you want to be as global and as mobile as that, you're going to need an army of lawyers defending your bank accounts from all kinds of different attacks. I only need my cold card, and that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much it.
Right, right, yes, yes. I mean, you could do the five flag theory and have have a certain bank account for spending, and you could do all of that. But yes, we're still talking about the first realm and the coercion that can happen there. So I guess is there anything else you'd like to mention in regards to your journey to being unbanked or living on Bitcoin, and then yeah, I want to get to these couple questions in chat, and then we'll begin to close out. So yeah, anything else on living on Bitcoin or unbanking?
Well, something not specifically living on Bitcoin, but something that you've talked about greatly on the show, and actually that you've inspired me as a vast majority to actually manifest, is van life, is to be a perpetual traveler, and to have a home on wheels, just a castle of yourself that you can place at any distance, is, it goes so well together. It is incredible. Again, I've traveled to 8, 9 different countries, most of that with a car. And it's ridiculous. And I mean, what one major downside is, of course, a license plate and all this, but it is, in my opinion, much better than traveling by plane, where you have to give fingerprints and show your ID and face scans and all this.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and definitely waiting in line like sheep to the slaughter, at the border every single time just bothers me so much. And something that I really realized after only a couple weeks of living in my mobile castle is that it truly has become a home. I've made it beautiful inside, exactly the way I want it, because ultimately it's just a very small place, and you can manifest it totally in the way you want. And for me, I bought the car itself with Bitcoin directly from the
Mm,
entrepreneur.
nice.
By sending him from my Wasabi wallet to his Wasabi wallet. Told him to coin join right after. I think he did. I didn't check on the time chain because I don't want to spy on him. Then I got the car itself for Bitcoin. I put solar power on top. I bought that with gift cards from Bitrefill on Amazon. Huge battery pack as well. I put some beautiful wood inside that I talked with a local woodcutter and forester who wanted to stack some sats in exchange for beautiful, beautiful wood.
Yeah.
Something that I really value. And you realize you really don't need much. I have all the things that I need, basically. Of course, you cut down on conveniences. And for example, for me, I don't even have a water heater in the place, and not optimally designed running water, at least not yet. And that is definitely a huge trade-off, right? You do give up a lot of conveniences, like a hot shower every morning.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, well, I personally just like to shower cold. It wakes me up, it makes my mind sharp, it focuses me, and it gives me a lot of strength. So that was something that I've been doing for many years already. So the convenience that I gave up here was minor, trivial. But the amount of liberty that I got just by having a mobile castle that I can park at a different place, in a different city, in a different country every single night without asking for permission, without worrying about getting housing or hotel or Airbnbs. It is unspeakable. I don't even know where I will be going next. I will decide as soon as I'm behind the wheel again. And
Right.
and just having that mindset of I don't care. All I need is in my bag, right? And wherever I park the car, that is my home. And I don't live within the car. I live out of this car, right? I have all the tools that I need within the trunk, basically, and I park it, and I'm out, and I do whatever business that I need to do. And the next morning, I am gone. And again, this just decreases the attribution. I've not once paid for parking. I've not once had to pay for getting fresh water or for discarding my old water. And without begging for permission, I've traveled to so many countries. And again, it's a great way of getting rid of your fiat shitcoins by exchanging them for diesel, which in my
Right.
opinion is a much better store of value than fiat is.
Very good. That's really awesome to hear, man. I kind of had an idea that you'd gone the Van Nomad route. Some clues, I guess, but I wasn't familiar with all of it. That's That's great to hear. So you really are, the crypto anarchist van nomad out there traveling across Europe.
For me, it is a temporal autonomous zone initiator. So a TASI. Park it, live your life, and move, and do that every single day. And ultimately, if you decide to that you found a beautiful spot, stay there for a week, for a
Hmm.
month, for however long you desire. And if you want to have some convenience that you're missing, for example, getting a hot bath, or maybe laying down, in a beautiful spa, getting a massage or whatever, your expenditures have decreased drastically, and I mean
Hmm.
drastically. Right, rent is such a huge part, fueled by the fiat malinvestments in housing, um, and when you all of a sudden reduce your expenditure by that drastic of an amount, enjoy the luxury of going to the spa every other day.
No joke. And for Bitcoiners, it seems to be like that low time preference, like low time preference behaviors, like health and saving money and such. Well, if obviously you want more Sats, right? You want to stack more Sats. So one way to do that is, as you said, cut your expenditures, and live in a van. So if you want to, 5-10 years of living in a van, toss all that into Sats, I think your future self would be very, very happy with your decision. Um, but that's just me.
Yeah, yeah, and on another note, dude, it really is not expensive. I bought my car for zero point 0.4 Bitcoin. That's not much at all. No, I built it out for another zero point 0.3 Bitcoin. I have a complete functional castle for zero point 0.7 Bitcoin. That's a couple thousand US dollar shitcoins. It really is not much. And within probably half a year, I have the opportunity cost of rent, to be back in profit again in that sense.
Hmm.
And again, honestly, I really would not care how much money it costs. The amount of freedom that you get on this is infinite. And again, it's just, maybe I'm over exaggerating here because it was such a tremendous shift for me, not just van nomadism, not just being Bitcoin only, not just supporting free and open source software, but like all of this together. But holy shit, this is intense.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's really, really awesome to hear, man. That's really, really awesome to hear. So we've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes here. I wanted to bring up these couple of questions from chat. And we'll close with Bruno Reyes. But Tech Libre asks, what are your opinions of decentralized finance and the projects happening around the Ethereum blockchain, Max?
Uh, b- b- um, well, with Ethereum, I honestly just don't have the time to look into it. I think there's many architectural flaws in the approach that they do. I mean, hard forks all the time, like dictators deciding when to roll back the chain and steal money. Just fundamentally, I'm not interested in their philosophy and their design implementations. Um, but ultimately, decentralized finance, absolutely. And in that sense, I mean, censorship resistant, self-hosted, permissionless networks. So, for example, I've been a huge supporter of the BISC network, which is a self-hosted, decentralized Bitcoin exchange, where you can exchange Bitcoin against any shitcoin that you like, including the fiat shitcoin, but also cryptocurrency shitcoins. And the beauty of it is it utilizes the sound and unrelenting Bitcoin multisig script to enable exchanging digital goods or even physical goods. You can exchange in cash there. And over I think it's been around since 2014 in its first incarnation. As far as I know, there has not once been a stolen transaction. Just because of how Bitcoin multisig works, it works. And if the two parties agree, everything works fine. If the third party has to jump in, if the two parties don't agree, then the arbitrator can usually figure it out what's going on. So in that sense, it's a very well working platform. I'm very interested in decentralized markets for example, coin joins. I mean, Join Market is a beautiful protocol where peers can get together with market incentives to have liquidity providers who get paid and market takers who provide the conditions of the coin join and then pay the liquidity providers in order to do the coin join. That is a phenomenal decentralized project. And we have other things in the making. Again, as I spoke earlier, atomic swaps that will need entire infrastructure of backend and coordination of itself. That is decentralized finance as well. So I am very interested in all these tools and how we can get censorship-resistant protocols to engage in economic activity. But I just have, architectural doubt that it will happen on Ethereum. I just think that Bitcoin, is the place to do the development on.
Yes, yes, I certainly agree. I certainly agree, and yeah, again, well said. So yeah, Bruno Ray, and I would for the answer to this question, I'd primarily point to our first discussion. We went in excruciating detail, and in a good way, obviously. But I recently heard Max describe Bitcoin as a tool for self defense. I'm curious if he'd expound on what tools he finds useful. So yeah, if you want to, if you got an answer for that.
Yes, so basically, it's a full stack of privacy and self-sovereignty weapons. So first and foremost, you should run your own full node. Don't rely on any trusted third party to verify for yourself if you have received money. You should do that for yourself. And here, there are many awesome projects out there: the Raspberry Blitz, the Bitcoin Node Launcher. Or of course the Nodl, which I'm personally a huge fan and contributor and user for a long time. That is phenomenal. One-click install of all the Bitcoin weapons that you need: Bitcoin Core, Lightning Network, Overtor, Electrum Personal Server, Write the Lightning, BTC Pay Server. Like, all the magic is on there that you need. So that is something that I truly value. Then the next step is how you're going to communicate, right? So run your own Tor bridge node and support the network with bandwidth. That is vitally important as well. And also PGP. Encrypt your communication in all ways, right? Use PGP, get your fingerprint signed and all this. Let me actually just 1 second. I should actually mention my PGP fingerprint again, and that is, it ends with 42AC3C57. So if you want to sign my fingerprint, that would be phenomenal. And encrypt your communication, especially for the Bitcoin stuff. So don't send your Bitcoin addresses over Twitter or Facebook direct messages, because that is not encrypted at all. So be very careful in how you generate invoices. And here specifically, I can recommend BTC Pay Server, which has a Bitcoin full node implemented as well. And this is basically a way to manage your Bitcoin invoices. So to not reuse addresses, which is the worst thing for your privacy that you can do. And to have a beautiful interface, to be able to get all the transaction data that you need, self-hosted on your own hardware. Very important. And then as soon the question is, how are you going to earn the Bitcoin? Are you going to buy them on a KYC exchange? Well, hopefully not. Don't beg for permission to stack your sats. Of course, you can use something like BISC, as mentioned earlier. If you still have a fiat bank account and want to trade your fiat shitcoins for Bitcoin, make an offer. Make sure that the order book is quite full, or take an offer of the already existing. That is fascinating. Even better, I think, is buying it in person, in cash. As I said, go to Bitcoin meetups, organize your own Bitcoin meetups in your local Agora, teach the peers about how to use these weapons, and then ask them if they want to stack some sats. Most certainly, if you've done a good job explaining it, they will. So get your fiat cash, no, wait, that's if you want to exit. Then go, then ask them if someone wants to sell you Bitcoin if you want to enter. Or even better, earn them. And not just by getting a fiat job in some random office cubicle, but support free and open source projects. There are countless projects out there that need your support, and many of them have some budget to pay. And here I can do some recommendation. For example, the Wasabi wallet documentation project that I've started and that I maintain. We have a budget of currently roughly 0.2 Bitcoin every single month for any contributor. It doesn't matter how large or small the contributions are. Even if you fix typos, you will get a couple sats, probably delivered over Lightning. It's phenomenal. I think by now we have almost 1 Bitcoin paid out in bounties just for contributors to the documentation of the software. Let alone all the full-time developers that we now hire. There are many projects here that really need your help and that are very willing to give you some of the precious sats in exchange for your expertise and your services. So that is something to very much consider. Then CoinJoin. Very important. Try to delink your coins from your identity so they can no longer be attributed to yourself, which is the first step in any censorship. So here, coin joins, again, join market is a beautiful implementation. Wasabi wallet, of course, has a huge coin joins with zero link of anonymity set of 100, which is quite a lot actually. Do other privacy preserving techniques like good coin control. UTXOs are not fungible, right? If you buy a if you buy Bitcoin on a exchange, KYC exchange, then this specific UTXO is tied to your identity. But if with the next transaction you buy in cash, then this new UTXO is not tied to your identity. So these coins are fundamentally different, and you should treat them differently. And especially if you have not coin joined them. So coin control and coin management, very important. The three main wallets that very well do that is Bitcoin Core, which is obviously running a full node also, so that is nice. Electrum, and here you should definitely run your own Electrum personal server. Again, the Nodal is very convenient to do that. Or Wasabi, which is my personal favorite, which has all the coin control and labeling and clustering of wallets in a very intuitive user interface. And then ultimately, the biggest mistake that you can do is not using Bitcoin at all. Like any second that you still spend in the fiat first realm is a second that you are being stolen from and that you're being spied upon and ultimately violated in all of your many rights. So exit as fast as fucking possible. You won't have much time. Shit is going to hit the fan soon in 2 weeks. So get prepared, learn how to use these weapons of self-defense, and ultimately use them. Anything is better than fiat, especially anything Bitcoin related. And of course, Lightning Network provides a bunch of usability and especially privacy benefits. So again, Lightning Network off-chain transactions that are no longer tied to transactions on the time chain, verified by every full node. So it has many privacy benefits upon as many others. And I think that's the pretty much, yeah, one important thing, of course, store your keys securely offline. So generate them with a secure hardware wallet random number generator. Maybe use something like the cold card. Here you can even use dice to roll your own entropy for your own private keys. So they are truly offline generated and truly, truly private and very, very random. And cold card Mark III just rolled out. It's a beauty. It might have enough processing power to support Schnorr signatures, which again is a major, major benefit coming to Bitcoin very, very soon, hopefully. And I guess these are some of the tools that are valuable, but ultimately do your own research. Don't trust me, and contribute to the free and open source projects that you use personally, because they very much need and appreciate your help.
Yes, indeed, and I will, just momentarily, I'll drop the link to our last episode where the show notes are quite extensive. If you want to look into these projects more, if you want to, download Wasabi Wallet and start playing around with it, all of those links will be in the show notes to that to the show notes of that episode. So very good, very good. So Max, I guess it's been great chatting again. I certainly appreciate you coming on to chat. It's late where you are. It's about 11 a.m. where I am. It's coming up on midnight there in Taiwan. But I guess any closing thoughts for the listeners?
Well, ultimately, exit. Opt out. This has always been a strategy for the fringes, right? Those who just no longer want to keep up with the slave masters trying to dictate everyone around. It has always been a difficult life. It has always been challenging with huge costs associated, ultimately at the risk of your own life. And with new technologies that we've discovered over the last recent years, the cost of opting out has decreased tremendously. And the ability to defend yourself with these advanced tools has increased drastically. Especially with something like PGP, where it is just minimal cost to defend yourself and exponential cost to attack to being attacked. Mm-hmm. This is the model that we should strive for. Increase your expenditure for defense so that the expenditure for being attacked gets increased exponentially. The more you use these tools, the better and more protected you are, which means ultimately you are less vulnerable to coercion, which means you are free. The tools are out there. It is possible. And I'm definitely not the first one to discover it. One of my major role models in this entire journey was Felix Weiss, the Bitcoin traveler. who started traveling on Bitcoin only in 2012.
Oh, wow.
So he is an OG of opting out and being Bitcoin only, and he has done a tremendous job. Like traveled countless countries, exactly like pretty much with the same strategies I have. Like try to get your Bitcoin expenditure up, spend less fiat, hold less fiat, and if you need to spend fiat, use cash or strawmans, and don't associate them with your own identity. And you know, this is something that actually works. And not just does it work, it's hell of a fun doing so. Opt out and have fun doing so, and fuck the state.
Yes, sir. Very well said. A great way to close out. Great way to close out. So Max, where can people find your work if they want to keep up with you?
So my personal website is towardsliberty.com, and there are links to a bunch of resources, both about Austrian economics as well as Bitcoin and just natural law, freedom, philosophy, and links to all the videos that I've produced, teaching most of the project that I've contributed to. Again, I'm a huge noob. I cannot code, but I can teach, and that is something that I and probably many others, including you, Shane, can really support all these projects with. So you definitely don't have to be a coder to contribute to free and open source software. And specifically also again the Wasabi wallet, that is one of the main endeavors that I'm focused on right now. And here again, the shout out to all the devs building awesome privacy tech. And even, if you're a C# coder, join us on GitHub. That would be phenomenal. If you're not a coder, again, fix typos at docs.wasabiwallet.io, and I will throw you some Satoshis, and you can start stacking sats in the second realm. Again, Shane, thank you very much for inviting me here on the show. It really has been a great pleasure. Again, the Vonu Podcast has been a great inspiration for what I've accomplished now. Just finding other peers that are like-minded to exchange ideas and to compare notes, to get peer review in, is very, very important. So I thank you very much for all the work that you've done bringing this freedom strategy to the forefront, and keep up doing what you're doing, and be Vonu.
Hey, thanks, man. I certainly appreciate that. But I think I need to start doing some proofreading of the Wasabi Wallet docs. seems like something I need to. Seems like something right in my wheelhouse. But very good, man. Very good. I'll put all those links in the show notes. And I don't really have anything else. Max, anything else for the listeners before I close this out?
Other than earn Bitcoin, coin join, hodl, spend, repeat. That's pretty much it. Pierce, thank you very much for joining. See you on the next show.
Yep. Indeed. All right, guys, that's all I have for you. Please check out Liberty Understack Publications for all of your self-liberation needs. If you're looking for books to help you find personal freedom, or if you're an author looking for a publisher or publishing services, we can help you out. Just go to libertyunderattack.com. All of the information will be listed there. I did go ahead and drop in the show notes I think I did in this one. I think I went ahead and dropped Bitbacker in there if you do want to support the podcast, which will be coming back. If you do want to support the podcast or my work, Bitbacker is another way to do so, and that link is in the show notes. So thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in. And until next time, let's build the Agora, and let's build Second Realms.